Hey, 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 yeah, hey, what a time to be alive. I left them for dead, now I'm living right. No new friends, no new advice. That was high then, but we got bigger heights. We got bigger fish to fry. Bet on myself, then I roll the dice. Man, it ain't a gamble if you know you nice.
All right, welcome back to Dollar and Dream Podcast. I'm your host, Ara Amen. This is the #1 podcast in Dallas, Texas. And today, my guest is Tiffany Whitaker.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so surprised that you asked me to come, but I'm here.
Why are you surprised?
I don't know. I mean, we're sidelines. I'm not really, like a marketing director or anything yet, but
I haven't had that many marketing directors on.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here.
I like, so this is my whole, idea with this. It's I want to, work my way up.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if I go get, a Matt Sapala day one, it's what do we just... That's just way too high of expectations immediately.
True.
I haven't even asked Curtis and Spring to be on yet.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So, I want to work my way up to them because I want to
Yes.
develop before I have, I'm in their presence to, actually soak up all their intelligence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not that, I hope that wasn't a call out or anything, but.
No, it's not. No.
Cool. Okay, so what I want to start with is your handle. MoneySmartNurse.
Yes.
I love that you have that because it's so. I saw that and I was like, I want to do Money Smart Engineer, and I'm like, that's way too many. Now I'm copying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest. Obviously, my mentor. You already know Matt is the Money Smart guy, and he knew that I was kind of toying around with different names. Financial nurse, financial RN. Something tying what I know, my background as a nurse, to what I'm now pursuing in financial services. And so he actually came up with the name, and I loved it.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to kind of know your background. So give me 2-minute story about where you were born. What was it like growing up? What was family like?
Okay. So I'm from Sacramento, California, to be specific, Rancho Cordova, which is East Sacramento. And I was actually born on an Air Force base. My dad was in the Air Force when my mom had me. And I actually, so I grew up in Sacramento, like I mentioned. I am the oldest of 4 children. So on my dad's side, I've got 3 brothers. And then with my mom, it's just my brother and I. And I'm also one of the oldest of all of us cousins who grew up in Sacramento together as well. So I've got an older cousin. We're just a month apart. So I think that's a lot of who I am today.
Yeah.
But yeah, so both of my parents are actually nurses. My dad is a nurse manager for an ER, and he was also a firefighter paramedic. And then my mom was a telemetry nurse. But they weren't nurses when I was born. I actually watched both of them go through nursing school.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen them go from LVN to RN, and that's where we are today.
That's amazing that you got to see your parents go through those phases of development. You know what's really funny? You said that you're the oldest of all the cousins, or you're one of the oldest of all the cousins. I've been noticing a pattern in people that I speak with who are leaders, because you are the leader of that next generation.
Right.
And I am also the oldest of all the cousins, the first one. And then I forget, there's been multiple people I've spoke with who said the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's just built in you.
Right.
It's I am here to lead all my family.
Yeah.
And it's just that energy that kind of just, I think is why we're here where we are. So what was Tiffany like in high school?
Let's see, high school. I was a little bit of a kind of a mix between maybe on the nerd side, but also a jock. I played a lot of sports. I played basketball year round. I played volleyball, did a little track, but sports. That was what I did day in and day out.
Why sports? Was that your mom and dad was you have to do sports? Is it discipline? What expand on that?
So, it started off with that way. My dad just wanted us, actually all of us cousins, just all in those, recreational basketball, rec teams, little things here and there. But I grew to love basketball, so extremely competitive. I was pretty good, and that's just where all my friends were. That's the same types of personalities. That's where I got all of my friends. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's pretty much just what it was. It wasn't like I was forced. I fell in love with sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the career path into going nursing? Was it I saw mom and dad do it. I got to do it. Was there any other options that you wanted to do? Why nursing?
Okay. Well, I always knew that I wanted to do something in healthcare. I thought, when I was young, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. I wanted to be a medical examiner. And I think watching both of my parents go through nursing school and hearing them kind of talk, that kind of jargon, kind of maybe implanted it in me as well. But I also, like I mentioned, I was huge on sports. So I was kind of like, I want to go to the WNBA and all of that. And when I realized, okay, that's not really the path that I'm going in, it kind of defaulted to nursing. I did a senior project where I had to go shadow my mom. And, I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. So always have loved, helping people. That's kind of what all nurses say, but it is true. And so kind of following in that path, I'm actually 3rd generation nurse. So my one of my grandmas is a registered nurse as well. And then one of them is a nurse's aide. So I think maybe that's just ingrained in me.
There was no other avenue you want to take. It was nursing from the beginning, or like the medical field from the beginning.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And then what was high school? What was it like after high school?
So after high school, I did continue to play sports. So I played basketball in a community college, and then I was doing my prerequisites during that time for nursing school. And then pretty much, I was done with those 2 years and got into nursing school, and that's where that started.
Okay. And you know a mentor of ours from high school.
Uh-huh.
So obviously you mentioned Matt Sapala, and she's married to Sheena Sapala. So
Yes.
What was Sheena Sapala like in high school?
So it's funny. We actually go back to elementary school.
Elementary school. Okay.
Yes.
So y'all grew up together from elementary to high school.
Pretty much. So we met in the middle of elementary school. So I think maybe it was 3rd, 4th grade, again, playing sports. But we also lived very close to each other. So we took the same yellow school bus. So, and then because we lived so close, either my parents or her parents would give each other a ride after practice, stuff like that. But I would tell you that she's very much the same that she was back then. She's always had a vision of, I would say, greatness, being successful as far as, financially. She's always had, I don't want to call her, she's not super materialistic, but she does have, she has like a higher standard, higher taste for things as well. But she's always kind of had this, just drive.
Drive for high standard.
Both.
Drive for high.
Yes, correct. She wants to be that, that she wants to get the A. She wants to be the best in sports. Now, I was the one who played basketball. She also played as well, but her main sport was softball. Mm-hmm. But she wanted to excel in anything that she did.
So, how did y'all meet? Like, how was the first interaction? Like, how was it like, let's go play on the playground? Like, what was it?
So I was extremely shy, probably all the way up until high school.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was so shy. I was very, very quiet in band, student government, just very, very shy. But what kind of glued us together, because she was not so much. She was kind of, I always like to tease her. She was part of like the cool kids, and I think it was sport. So we played softball. That was her, like sport. So her and her sisters were on my team, and they were very, very good. I think it was my first year playing softball. I was very, very bad. I'm still bad at softball, actually. And so we ended up, I think it was just by default, because we lived by each other and we had to take the bus together and we played sports together. I don't remember the first interaction. I just remember, I think it was middle school, where we actually started, where we consider being best friends, where we were just together all the time. Whether it's, I think it was, we took some advanced classes at the high school when we were still in middle school together. So that kind of put us into a small group. And I think that's where our relationship kind of, or our friendship started to develop, and where we became best friends.
That's so rare that you have that such of a close tie with someone from elementary school all the way till now. What was something that most people might not know about Sheena?
Let's see. She is an introvert. She would much rather just be at home in her PJs watching Korean dramas.
She likes Korean dramas?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, she loves Korean skincare, Korean food. Yeah, definitely. She would much rather just kind of be alone.
That's so funny
that,
seeing her lead like teams of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and she just wants to be at home in her PJs watching Korean dramas. That's so funny. That's really, really funny. Okay, so you go to nursing school. Are you while you're in school, are you focusing solely on nursing? Are you working? Are you playing sports? Like, is it explain that to graduation?
Sure. So I would say all of the above. So I was playing in community college while I was doing my prerequisites. During nursing school, so I'd also got my EMT certification right out of high school. So I would work as kind of like the medic at football games, some other, like karate tournaments, that kind of thing. I also worked at Subway. So that was my first job out of high school. But then also when I got into nursing school, I had to go back and ask my boss to work at Subway part-time. And it was so funny because I was actually working with Sheena's baby sister at Subway during that time. As far as sports, I was a gym fanatic. So if I wasn't studying or at work, I was at the gym.
Okay. And what city is this? This is Sacramento?
Rancho Cordova or Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you graduate, and what's next? You go be a nurse? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So I got my job. And I start, night shift as most nurses do. So working 312s, night shift, oncology floor. So I've been an oncology nurse my entire career. But I'm, just working the 312s like any normal nurse does, 4 days off. So I'm out there, I'm in Northern California, so I'm making pretty good money. I'm just, partying, not really doing anything, special, just hanging out with other nurse friends, my family, like I said, partying, playing basketball, going to the gym. That's pretty much all that I was doing.
You had a party phase?
Yes.
Okay, that's another trend I'm noticing in a lot of leaders that I've been speaking with, is that they all had a phase where it's like they're just partying. And for many different reasons, right? Some people are trying to escape. Some people are trying to fit in. Some people are bored. Mm-hmm. Were you partying in high school, college, or was it after?
This was after.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't in high school, not at all. While I was still in nursing school, I would say in nursing school I did, because that was probably more of the escape portion.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until like when I became a nurse. I think it was more because now I have income coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
You finally get that paycheck and you're like, I can go do things, but you don't really know what to do with it.
Right.
So if you're on the wrong people, wrong associations, wrong temptations,
right, you
can be led that way.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your association like at this point? Are you, because you said you're partying, are you being pulled into it, or are you leading it, the charge? Like what is your association like at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a little bit of both. I'm not necessarily one to be pulled in, but if it's like a good time that I agree that's going to be a good time, then I'm going to go ahead and join. It was probably a lot of my coworkers, so a lot of nurse friends. I have a really close group, even still to this day, that we were all kind of came together as new nurses together, that we started hanging out quite a bit. And so I think it was more so just income and time. So we're working 312. So we have 4 days a week, and a lot of us started off our careers, not married, no kids. So we just have all this freedom, days off that other people don't have. So I think that's mostly what it was.
Cool. Okay. I want to dive into nursing, because I don't know anything about nursing.
Okay.
And I want to understand what the good, the bad, the ugly. What is some? So just start with that, good, bad, and ugly about nursing. Because how long have you been doing nursing now?
It's going on 14 years now.
14 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of explain that development, because you're a nurse manager now. Mm-hmm. I'll explain the development, and then let's go into the good, bad, and ugly.
Okay, sure. Well, and to be specific, I'm also an oncology nurse, so I take care of cancer patients.
Okay.
And that's what I've done for this past 14 years. And so there's definitely good, bad, and ugly. So if you want to talk about, just, working with cancer patients in general, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, right? And I started off in the inpatient setting. And so that's where a lot of our patients are, they're pretty sick. So they're either sick and now they're getting their new diagnosis, or they're really, really sick because of the side effects to their treatment, or they're, to that point of, the end of their days. And so working inpatient oncology, especially because I was a brand new nurse, I almost saw like, if you get diagnosed, like, that's it. That's kind of how I felt about cancer during that time. Now, working inpatient as just a nurse in general, we have a lot of responsibilities. There's a lot that we have to fit in within a 12-hour shift. There's a lot of, you've got patients' families, you've got the patients just themselves, you've got the hospital who's, has all these other expectations of you, the doctors who have all their expectations of you, and it can be a lot to handle at times. But once, after I would say about 2 years, you kind of get into this rhythm. That's where you kind of really feel comfortable and confident in your skills. And so that's where the comfortability, I think, starts to come is in the 2-year mark. But with the oncology patients specifically, you just have to really learn how to not take that home with you. And a lot of people are like, man, how can you work in an oncology space? And it's about, I really want to make the hardest part of someone's life. That's one of the worst diagnoses you can ever get, right? I want to make it as comfortable or as tolerable as I possibly can as your nurse during that time. And if I know I'm giving it my best and it comes from a, good place that I'm really advocating for, to be comfortable, for you to have the, get your treatments, correctly, to be safe. I think I've done my job in that way. I can not take some of the sad parts home.
Do you think a lot of other nurses have that mentality?
I do. I mean, I definitely can see, I've definitely seen where people are like, man, nurses make a lot of money, so I'm going to go become a nurse. I've seen those nurses, but I don't think they last. Or they go to, and this is not a shot to anybody doing, med spas and things like that. But I've seen a lot of the nurses who just want the money portion kind of go into those different types of places.
Because you have to be mentally tough. And diligent to be able to help someone during the toughest time of their life. So
yeah, for sure.
Not gonna last.
I mean, we're not seeing people at their best, right? We're seeing people at their worst. They don't feel good. They're trying to cope with, whatever they're dealing with at that time. You've got the families that are trying to cope as well. So a lot of people are going through the whole like grieving processes, so they're maybe not necessarily treating you like they might treat you on a regular day, right? So we're seeing them at their worst days times. And don't get me wrong, I've got lovely patients, but it's not to take it personal during those times. And what can I do to just, finding out, it's just like in financial services, what we do, what is their objective? When we kind of tailor, like our products and services around their needs, it's the same thing. What are they trying to accomplish at this time? And what can I do for that? And how can I advocate that to their physicians?
Okay. So what was the, you said you got it rolling in 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then what was the climbing of, I guess you could say, corporate ladder like?
Okay. Well, so I would say whether you're in the inpatient or the outpatient setting, it also depends on how large your organization is. I happen to work for a rather large organization when I started. So there's a lot more opportunities, to become like your charge nurse on your shift. And then usually it kind of starts from there. You become your charge nurse, and then if there's a nurse manager position that opens or assistant nurse manager position opens, then you can kind of find your way in there. But usually, and I come from, I think, the end of like kind of your associate degree nurse, to where you can kind of go into those positions, but now they want their bachelor's, master's type. And so you kind of have to wait for people to retire out of those positions to be able to move in. I would say I didn't really have any aspirations to be in nurse leadership. I really wanted to go in the education route. So I didn't really care about that at that time. I kind of was just like, okay, at some point I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to get, my nurse educator degree, and then I'm going to go teach.
At universities?
Yeah, well, kind of more like at kind of the community college level, like where I was, is what was my thoughts.
Okay. So when did you become a nurse manager? How many years in?
So it was about 11 years into my career. So I've only been a nurse manager for the last, 2.5 years.
And you said you didn't want to do that.
Right. So eventually I moved to Texas. So my ex-husband was in the military. We moved. I got a position as what's called a PRN nurse. And because I had diverse oncology experience, so I've worked in the inpatient setting, radiation oncology, infusion, and the clinic. I took a position as a PRN float for the company that I work for now. And my manager was actually transitioning out about a month after I got hired, but he saw some leadership in me, and then also with the knowledge that I had. And so he was just like, hey, Tiff, do you want to take my position? I was actually out sick, and he just called me up and was like, do you want to take my position? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I've only worked here for maybe 3-4 weeks. I'm out sick already, and you're offering me your position. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I'm ever going to get this type of position. Like I said, you usually have to wait for people to retire out.
Yeah.
And I'm a military spouse, so I'm always, I'm bouncing around when I'm going to get this opportunity. And so I just jumped on it and took the position.
Do you like it?
I do. The reason why I really wanted to do it was as a challenge. So I think we were kind of talking a little bit before this, being kind of like the oldest sibling, playing sports, being the captain on sports, and just kind of things like that. People just naturally have always told me, I can see leadership in you and that kind of thing. And I wanted this to kind of be like my formal test. Like, okay, can you be a leader? A leader and manager, yes, there's differences, but can you truly, lead people, and especially in your career? And so, as far as liking it, I do. There's things that I like and I don't like about it. And I think probably seeing the things that I don't like about it is, I think, what's kind of propels me towards financial services.
You said something that is very important to distinguish. There's a difference between leaders and managers. What's the difference?
So I would say, and to me, I would say leadership is more almost like emotional, I would say. So you really want to motivate people by, I don't know, maybe by action, really making them feel motivated internally versus externally, where on the management side, obviously there's numbers and things like that we've got to look at.
There's metrics you have to hit.
Correct. Yeah. And then there's also, obviously, so making sure that your employees, your staff know those expectations, and you're guiding them towards that by giving them the tools. But I feel, and also I think management also comes from, more of a title versus, I think, leadership. Even if you're not a manager, you can be a leader, on the floor or in the clinic, just by kind of, your characteristics, your mannerisms, your actions, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. What's the good, bad, and ugly in the 14 years that you've been in the nursing industry?
So I would say COVID, I think, changed a lot, shifted a lot of stuff in our career. A lot of nurses went the traveling route. I think a lot of nurses got really, really burnt out. And so even now that especially because I'm in the hiring position now at my job, and just looking at a lot of these nurses' resumes, people are just hopping around. They're either hopping around for more money, or just because I think they just get burnt out quickly. I think a lot of people, it changed, with the traveling contracts. If you don't know, nurses are getting paid a lot more.
Yeah, for travel positions.
Right.
One of my best friend's girls is a travel nurse.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I know a little bit about it. I haven't sat down and talked to her in detail, but not just in nursing, in the engineering world now also.
Okay.
So back before like 1980s and prior, it was stay at a company for 10 plus years.
Right.
Then 90s to 2010s, it's like, all right, stay at a company for about 10 years and then switch. Then like 2010 to like 2015, it's like 5 years.
Right.
Now it's like 2 years.
Correct.
Now it's like 2 years, get out, 2 years, get out, 2 years, get out. And I hate that because you just said at 2 years, you finally start getting the hang of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the system is designed now is if you want to keep up with inflation, if you want to make more money, you get to the point where you finally understand and keep the ball rolling, switch, go to a new place, understand, keep the ball rolling, switch. And it's like, it's almost, you're in a rat race.
Right.
You're never catching up because once you get past this 2 year mark, you're able to take on more work and then they just dump everything on you. So then you're almost in a position to where you have to leave. You're forcing people to quit. You're pushing people to that. And it's just inefficient for the company. It's inefficient for us as humans. It's inefficient for our families because we're traveling and moving and we can't have a family. So it's just really, really interesting how the corporate world has been structured to basically get you to find a new job.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't know that at all about, in engineering. I wouldn't have thought that. But yeah, it's the same. You look at these resumes and it's like 1 year here, 2 years here, like you said. And so I'm like, there's no loyalty. But at the same time, are the employers giving, loyalty? Because now as a manager, I can see the other side, but I can see the challenges that the employers are having as well, right? What resources do they have? What, financial resources do they have? And especially when the nurses don't have that loyalty, then you're spending so much to train somebody only for them to just leave. Yep. And so, yeah, there's different struggles. And I would say nurses, we do tend to be that kind of pile on person because we're not the doctor. And we're not, like the CNA or the MA. So, and we wear many, many hats. So we can sometimes be taken on like social work positions, case management things. There's all these different responsibilities that we can have that other disciplines, they're kind of more, okay, you do physical therapy, you do social work, nurses, we're kind of trained to have, social work type conversations. We're trained to do, certain exercises and things like that with the patients or whatever. So when those disciplines maybe, there's not enough for them to go around, it does kind of fall on the nurse. But our pay is not increasing, and so there's that.
So what's the good?
What's the good? Like I said, I think it's purpose. As an oncology nurse specifically, I have felt purpose from day one. So just being able to, like I said, just be there for a patient or their family during one of the worst periods of their life, worst diagnosis of their life, and just maybe getting that thank you or that smile or that little note that was written, man, Tiffany took really good care of me. Like that means a lot to me. That means the world to me. There's certain patients, I can think of a couple right now that just stick out to me that I've had, throughout the years, and that I would say the purpose. So if you truly do love helping people and you love your nursing career, I would say it's just, you do feel purposeful. Like you feel like you've affected somebody else's life, in your lifetime being here. So I would say that's probably a big part of it. I would say consistent challenge. There's always something that's going on. It's not too routine or mundane that you get bored. So that would be one of it. There's so many different things that you can do with nursing. So like, my specialty is oncology, but if you like the heart, you can do cardiology. If you want to work, night shift, you can work night shift. If you want to I work 9 to 5 in a clinic, you can do that. So there's a lot of flexibility. If you want to go teach, you can teach. There's different like little specialties within nursing that gives us flexibility. Obviously, especially, being a former military spouse, it's a career that can travel with you, right? So not everybody can do that. And I would say, the pay, depending on what state you live in, is usually decent, so that you're not struggling.
What's the bad and ugly?
The bad and ugly, I think, is just, like I mentioned, what direction it's going in right now, as far as, no loyalty. And I would say, you know, as far as if you want to talk about emotional ugly, it is those, you know, unfortunately, those patients that you've grown this bond with, especially like, for instance, when I worked in radiation oncology, patients with radiation or who are getting radiation are usually getting treated Monday through Friday. So these are people you're seeing every day for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks,
Wow.
8 weeks, right? You've developed this close, you know, relationship with them. You've been there since day one when they got diagnosed, to all of their radiation treatment and then their follow-ups. But unfortunately, you know, there's the ones who aren't going to win their battle. And whether that's during their treatment or, you know, a month after, a few months after, that can be hard. You know, because these are people that you've gone close with their family. They're showing you pictures on their phone. They know you, that kind of thing. That can be really, really hard.
No, that does sound difficult.
Yeah.
What's something you learned about cancer in the last 14 years that most people don't know about?
Well, I would say a lot of people tend to generalize cancer. You know, but everybody's journey is different. And with things like precision medicine and the different testing that we can do these days, we can really kind of narrow down the type of cancer or the characteristics that it might have to really tailor the treatments that we have these days. There's more than there's something called immunotherapy. We won't get into that.
I kind of want to get into it.
Well, it's just a different treatment. So we can take a lot of the traditional chemotherapies, a lot of the traditional treatments that used to be given for cancer, and add things to it to kind of, I would say, tailor it to that person's specific cancer. Now, obviously, there's the different body parts, right? So we know that there's head and neck cancer. We know that there's GI. You know, we know that there's, you know, say breast cancer. We know all that, but even within those, there's different characteristics that someone's tumor might have.
So it's I kind of want to give me an example. I want to stay on cancer a little bit. What is a example of a cancer that you maybe treat, and then what is that like treatment process like how does that treatment work?
Okay, yeah, no problem. So just to keep it, you know, pretty basic, let's talk about head and neck cancer. That's something that I saw a lot when I was working in radiation. So head and neck cancer, you know, that can pretty much, you know, you've got nasopharyngeal, you got, you know, base of tongue. So pretty much in this region, right? Mm-hmm. You've got, say, your primary tumor. And so cancer in general, let's just say it's a bunch of cells that have just started growing rapidly, right, in one area. And so they're spreading, right? And so based on when that gets caught, and usually it's like some kind of symptom is happening, right, where they go and they get it checked out, and then they realize, okay, there's a mass or something that's going on. They get it biopsied, so they take a piece of it. Yep, this is cancer. This is the type that you have, right? And so then what our cancer treatments are trying to do is then stop that growth. Mm-hmm. And also then, so there's like you've got chemo that can be given, so that's like systemic. So the chemo is going to go into your vein, right? And so it's going to go pretty much all over and try to kill all those microscopic cells that we can't see, including the primary tumor, right? Then we've got radiation, which is, you know, external, but you can be, you know, do it a little precise to where you're treating the tumor right at where it's at. And then you've got surgery where you're just going to go in and you're going to cut it out. And so let's say for head and neck tumor, what you do, or head and neck cancer, you can have, there's various orders that you can go in, but say you can have a surgeon go in, cut out the primary tumor, but you don't know what microscopic cells might be left. Yeah. So then you get the systemic. So that's the one that, you know, it's going, you know, the chemo, the traditional chemo that you think about, that's going all throughout your body to kill those microscopic cells. And then you've got the radiation that's also going to kind of zap it at that site,
so
if that
makes
three. Sense. Yeah.
To make sure it's dead.
Correct. Yeah. And it just kind of depends on the very specific tumor that determines what order you do that and when you do that. But in general, chemotherapy, just targets cells that are growing fast. And so if you think about it, those cells that are growing fast are like your hair, your skin. And so that's
Your
where,
nails, right?
yeah. So like that's where those side effects come from.
Okay.
Because they don't know what's cancer cells. They don't know what's good cells. Also within our body, so we've got our white blood cells, our red blood cells, and our platelets. So those are also cells that are growing really, really fast. So that's where some of the side effects come from, because they're just killing whatever cells are growing fast. And so you take kind of like a combination of those things. So surgery, but then usually after, a certain period of time, you'll start chemo and radiation for head and neck usually. And so that's about, just depending on where you're at, maybe 7 weeks of radiation. So that's Monday through Friday that you're coming in and you're getting that radiation. It usually takes maybe 15 minutes. It's really short. It's more about the positioning that takes the time. And then usually, just kind of depending on what regimen you're on, maybe once a week or once every 3 weeks, then you're going into the infusion suite as well and receiving your chemotherapy.
Is chemo like a shot?
It actually just depends what type of chemo and what chemo you're getting. So a lot of patients will just get it right in their vein. So we'll put an IV and we'll administer it over, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is that we're giving for that day. Some patients get what's called a portacath.
Yeah.
That's placed, and it's literally the same thing as if we were putting in your vein, just a little bit different. And there are some chemotherapies that we can give as like a shot into your fat tissue, but it all just kind of depends on your particular regimen and what drugs you're getting.
Cool. What's like a miracle you've seen in your time as a nurse?
Let's see.
Like I want the story.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think of.
Or like something that stuck out.
Okay, but a good.
Anything.
A good stick out. Okay. Let's see. Let me think of what I would call a miracle. I would say working in radiation oncology, you definitely or working in outpatient in general, you see the good, where I told you, inpatient, we saw a lot of, kind of the worst cases, right? Because people are really, really sick when they're inpatient. But then you see on the outpatient side, you actually see that people do survive cancer. Tons of people do.
Yeah. Tons
of people. So a lot of people that I've given chemo to in the infusion suite or that I've helped in radiation, I've seen totally survive. Oftentimes there's a bell that you ring.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to indicate it's the end of your treatment journey. So I've seen tons of that. I guess I want to say, like the miracles, the things that stand out to me are just the people who come in with a positive attitude and stick with a positive attitude.
All mentality.
And I'm not going to say there's no scientific anything, but in my experience, I felt like the people who tend to be more positive going into it tend to have good outcomes. Or not even just good outcomes, but like less side effects almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's just a mindset that they have, like, okay, we're just going to do this. This is something that I need to do and just get through it. And so I would say that's what I really pull from, that inspiration. I was just thinking about a patient who just told me I was accessing his port just like a couple days ago. And I think it was, gosh, I hope I don't quote this wrong. I'm terrible at memorizing verses or anything. But I think it was Romans 8:18. And it mentioned something about us not comparing the struggles that we're going through now with what reward is to come.
Oh, wow.
And so he told me, he said that's kind of been his go-to verse these days. And what he's going through it's tough. He's going through a really rough regimen. But that's what he's holding on to. So it's things like that where you just get inspired, because it's like, man, I was having a hard day.
Yeah.
Like it was an irritating week, to be honest. But to have someone say that who's going through what he's going through, I'm like, Tiff, you got to get it together here. And I really just pulled that. And it's funny because I looked at that verse when I got home and I'm like, gosh, it kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Like, good for him for being so, so positive and really staying faithful, during what he's going through.
That's so interesting to where you think you're having a bad day,
Yeah.
and then you go and talk to this person, and they're having an amazing day,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, I was worried about nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
What was I gonna ask? I was gonna say, how did you learn to not take it home with you? Because did that happen like immediately? Did it take a couple years?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're saying you spoke with this person a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we speak, I don't like. Now we're having this conversation now, but I don't realize the day-to-day stuff you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So every time I see you, positive attitude, you're hyped, you have energy, you're excited to, keep going after you've been working like probably 12-hour, 13-hour shifts sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we see each other multiple times a week, like late at night when we're at the office working. So, people don't know that you just got off at maybe some people do, some people don't, but you just got off a 13-hour shift helping people go through all these things.
Mm-hmm.
How did you, one, learn to not take that home with you and then keep that endurance?
Okay. So 2 different things, but I would say it definitely took some, I think it's again at maybe that 2-year mark as a nurse where I just felt more confident, because I think you can take things personal. Like you see a bad outcome happening, and like, oh my gosh, did I do what I was supposed to do? And I'm like looking through my, did I follow the orders like I was supposed to? What did I miss? Especially if there's like a code, like, man, was there something that I missed on their vitals or their labs or something that I could have anticipated something was going to, happen. And then, you've got your veteran nurses who are like, no, look, you did this, and this. It's just out of your control at that point, right? And so it does take some adjustment. I think some people do better than others. Thankfully, both of my parents are nurses. My dad is an ER nurse. He was also a paramedic. Like, he's seen some things. Mm-hmm. And I would sometimes run stuff by him, like, Dad, like, would you have called the rapid response or called the doctor sooner? Or, like, what would you have done? And he's like, no, like, these are things that just happen. Like, you can be talking to someone and then boom, you're coding them,
What does that mean, coding them?
So doing CPR,
okay.
Doing all the life-saving measures. And I remember my first one. And it's not funny, but I do. I remember my first one, and I remember how hard it hit me. Because I was just talking to him. We were actually about to discharge him home. And then next thing you know, he is blue and, and it was all bad. But you just learn to, I think maybe out of experience, because you've gone through it a lot. And you just see there's just some things that just happen. But you're always, you're going to be as diligent as you possibly can. But, nature also takes its course, where, medicine or what we are doing, as humans aren't, we're not going to be able to combat. So.
How are you keeping up with the endurance? How are you working these shifts and then going to the office and working more and more? So you're basically having, what, like 15, 16, 17-hour days?
Well, and so I don't work 3/12s anymore. So I work 9 to 5 because I work in the clinic, or 8 to 5 to be specific. So I'm working, pretty much 40 hours as a week. So when I am coming into the office, oftentimes, it's right after I got my shift. I'm just changing my scrubs into what you see now, and then I head to the office. And sometimes I have to make a conscious decision to, like, Tiff, put on your smiling face. You are now putting on your financial services hat. And so sometimes it has to be just a conscious decision. And but endurance, I would say that's something I've had for a long time. Endurance is something that I think I've learned, with the sports. Also just like mentality, with just, some of the things that I've, maybe experienced in my life. I've just learned to just last, honestly. And I think with I know what purpose I have when I'm at work as a nurse, and especially as a nurse manager. So I have that patient care, but I also have to take care of my staff as well. And that can be stressful and draining as well. But I know what purpose I have at that time, and I try to make sure that I'm focused on that, and that I give my energy to that particular purpose for those 8 hours. And then Same thing when I go to, when I have my baby, I've got my purpose during that time, right? But then also when I get to the office, I'm like, okay, all that, nursing stuff, turn it off. What is our purpose here? Building business, building people, and saving lives in a different way. And so I just have to put that hat on, and that's where I get it. I think some of the endurance comes from just reminding myself of what are my goals. If I look back and I don't achieve these goals, where am I going to be? I'm still going to be in the same place if I don't continue to move. So I think that's where it comes from. It's just looking forward.
Okay, so you have your full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
You're a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
You run this business on the side. You go to the gym. I see you in the gym. What do you tell people that say, I don't have enough time to reach my goals, or say they want to make more money, or they say they want to get in the gym, or they whatever they say they want, and they're not doing, and what excuses they have? What would you tell someone that's making those excuses to not get to their goals?
One thing, so Jay Wright in the So one thing that he said to me, one of my first days coming to the office out here in Dallas, was breaking up, and I think he got this from a book, but breaking up your day into 15-minute increments. And that really exposes how much time we have in a day. Mm-hmm. And so I did that exercise, and that's kind of tedious, but I realized, okay, Tiff, even myself, with what you mentioned, I have more time in the day than I thought, right? So, and how can you maximize, that time and be maybe more intentional with certain things to make you feel like you have more time. But yeah, I mean, there really isn't a bunch of excuses that I'm going to accept.
Yeah.
Because I'm working my tail off, but it's more about, what are you doing right now? Are you happy with that? And if you don't make a change or put time into something else, are you going to continue to do that? I was just talking with, I think she said she was 20 years old, and I'm like, hey, do you even know what the traditional retirement age is? And she was like, well, no. I said, it's about 65 and up. I said, so you've still got another 45 years of working ahead of you. How does that make you feel? Well, gosh, I'm not going to do that. I think she's a medical assistant now. She's like, I'm not. Well, yeah, that's what Americans are doing. So if you can't picture yourself doing what it is that you're doing now, then you better create some time, and you better get a little bit realistic about that time, that 2 hours that you're scrolling on your social media, those 2 hours that you're watching on Netflix. You just need to get more realistic, because you actually have a lot more time than you think you do.
That's so cool, because you think you work hard until you meet someone that works hard, or you think you're busy until you meet someone that's busy. And you're like, man, I have so much more time than I thought.
Yeah. And I think it's also the examples that I have, right? So, I'm blessed to have Matt and Sheen very, very close, right, in proximity. So I see a lot of their day to day. And so, even them, making more than $1 million per year, I still see what work ethic they have. And I'm like, if I'm going to get anywhere even close to where they're at, I've got to put my time in as well. Mm-hmm. And I know that, Sheena started from working with Stryker full time. She was also a single mom, and then she transitioned to this business. I've seen her do it. I know it can be done. It's just about prioritizing to do it or not.
All right, I want to talk about that, because
sure.
you and Sheena grew up, mm-hmm. and then y'all went your separate ways, and then y'all rekindled because of financial services.
Okay.
So you just kind of mentioned you went to school, you went to nursing, you climbed up that ladder. Are y'all staying in touch? Are you seeing what she's doing? Because at one point you're probably reconnecting, and she's a millionaire leading a team of thousands.
Okay.
So what was that grow apart like? And then what are you watching? And then how did y'all come back together?
So, and I'll tell this, probably a lot of people don't know all of this part. So one, Sheena and I have remained best friends throughout all of our years. We're not the type to, when we weren't, living in the same, city like we are now, we weren't the type to be calling each other every day and telling each other of all the things that have happened, right? So Sheena, she got a scholarship and moved to Pennsylvania right after high school. I stayed in Sacramento. And then she got her job in Michigan, and then she went to Chicago, right? we're staying in touch this entire time. We're just not those every single day type kind of people. So it's usually, major milestones, that kind of thing that we're really on the phone on a regular basis. And especially, like before she met Matt and she, was still single. So we're just, we're having these, these kind of random conversations. But how it happened was, so I was, I was probably 2 years, maybe a year and a half to 2 years into my nursing career when Matt and Sheen met. Right. And so I was involved in all of that.
What was that like? Are you like making sure that she's being taken care of? And like, what was that like?
Matt will tell you a story, but pretty much, when Matt and Sheen, and he tells the story of how they met all the time, but I can tell you, and I hope she doesn't get mad for me saying this, but she called her mom, she called me, she called her older sister and said, I met the one.
Wow.
And so she knew, and she'd been single for quite some time. And so she really, and she has a good judge of character. She's usually a good judge. Like, she's kind of got like this black and white lens. You're good or you're not. And so she really felt strongly about that. So I'm like, okay, who's this guy and whatnot. And obviously I got, to know Matt, and love him. Right. But at first, I got to be defensive. I'm the best friend, I need to know what's going on. Who is this? And so anyways, the first time he tried to reach out and kind of introduce himself, I kind of shut it down.
Really?
Oh yeah. I was like, who are you contacting me? I don't know you, just because I'm crazy sometimes. But anyways, so so that's how that went. But no, he already had, he was already, deemed the money smart guy. He had, he was already in financial services. And so anyways, he's awesome, right? So I'm like, okay, he's good. He's good for Sheen. And I'm going to trust her judgment, right? So of course. But then I was one of her, kind of like top 25 type calls. Mm-hmm. So we ended up doing a client assessment. And well, just to speak how serious she is about her business is our first appointment. This was via Zoom. So she's living in Chicago. I'm still living in Sacramento. I'm supposed to meet up at her mom's house to do, it wasn't even Zoom then, maybe Skype.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to have a client assessment. And I show up late and she turns off that Skype and we have to reschedule because I didn't show up. And it was like, wow, even your best friend, you're going to have high standards and expect me to show up to my appointments on time.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So we reschedule anyways. So we reschedule and Matt and Sheen are, on the Skype, and they're teaching me about how my 401 or 403B works because I first was working for a not-for-profit. And so they're telling me how to save for retirement and how, I had no idea how a 403B works. I had no idea. I'm super clueless. I'm just throwing in money because I'm told to, right? I'm saying max out your 401k, your 403b, you're going to get matched and all this. I have no idea how any of this works. And they break it down for me and I'm so grateful. And I actually became their client as for a LERP. So I got that back in the day. And then I would say probably a couple years after that, because they had introduced the opportunity to be in financial services with them. And I'm like, are you crazy? I just graduated nursing school. Like, I don't know nothing about, what you guys are talking about. And I think it was also kind of like, who's this guy who's now telling me I can work in financial services too, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But it kind of stuck in my brain. So after a couple of years of working as a nurse, I see Sheen, kind of transition from her full-time job, which is an amazing full-time job, to, working in financial services. And a couple things had happened in my family where I was like, no, I need to increase my personal financial literacy. And so I remember calling her up and I'm like, Sheen, look, I remember you guys said that I can do this. There's some things going on with my family's, money and that kind of stuff. And I just need to learn about money. And so I actually joined them. This is with before they were PHP. And so I was actually working out of Sacramento while they were in Chicago. I flew out there to kind of see how the office was running. And even as a trainee, I kind of opened up my own little office space and was kind of operating. Now, this was just for maybe a max of like 6 months. And then my ex-husband and I start dating. And then we decided to get married, and then I moved to Phoenix. And this is literally the same time that Matt and Sheena get married and transition to PHP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I just kind of got out of financial services altogether from that short little stint and just didn't follow them into PHP. And then I was just kind of living my life.
Happened.
Right? Let's not do that, okay? That's only going to make us sad. But honestly, I just saw it more of like, let's just make an extra $1,000 or $2,000 with no intent of leaving nursing. So my mindset's different. And then obviously I'm cheering for them from afar all the time, now living in Phoenix, they're in Chicago.
Because you're watching them on social media.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm, I want her, I already know she's destined for greatness, right? I already know. And then you pair her up with Matt, and so they're just successful, and I'm loving it. Always, even, if anybody had, conversations about, life insurance or any, retirement planning, that kind of stuff, sending, hey, Sheen, I've got this person who wants to talk about this, but definitely cheering for them, having my own conversations.
So
with people.
you're still doing your referral partner.
Yeah, I would say I don't think any of them came to fruition, but it was kind of like they're like my go-to.
Got you.
And I would find myself having conversations with people just about my own policy that I had at that time. But just kind of as, just because I really truly, believed in what it is that we do. So then, and some major life things have happened. So and I don't know if you know this. So Matt and Sheen decide to move to Dallas to open up our office in the summer of 2021. I told you I was a military spouse. We got stationed in Texas of the summer of 2021. This is not planned. So we got stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base. That's Wichita Falls, so 2 hours away from here. And here they are in Dallas. So it's crazy. My best friend and I living in the same state after 20 years. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
It's almost like it was meant to be.
Right.
It's almost like it was supposed to happen.
So crazy, right? Well, let's see. So we moved here in August. So January, my husband tells me he wants a divorce. And there's no think about it, counseling, nothing. It's boom, he files. That's it. Right? So now I'm living 2 hours from my best friend, now going through a divorce. And the crazy part is, and when I mentioned that we kind of got married at the same time, like literally our anniversaries are just a month from each other. So it's just a crazy timeline. So then because I'm now divorced, there's different things, right? So now I'm a one income family. I'm a single parent. I'm living out here in Texas where I have zero family. He's actually from East Texas, but I've got zero family out here, and the only support that I do have is, Sheena and Matt, right? And the cool thing is they have Jordan, who's a toddler, and I've got my toddler, so they're a year apart. So that's really cool because Sheena and I think we had talked about like them kind of growing up together, but it's kind of like, yeah, but you live in Chicago and I live in Phoenix. Like that's never going to happen. But here we are. So I'm trying to remember how exactly this happened, but I think I was like, hey, Sheen, I want to come out and I want to see your office in Dallas because I've seen the Chicago office, right? And I met a new friend in Dallas who also had a toddler. So we're going to do kind of like a play date, sleepover type thing. And I was like, hey, you want to come see my best friend's office? I was like, hey, Sheen, can I bring somebody with me? She's like, yeah, absolutely. So walk in, we do the whole BOM situation like guest, right? Gaines is doing his thing, selling me the dream all over again.
Yeah.
And I've got my friend right here next to me. She was like, oh, we got to do this. And I said, oh, okay. Yeah. So we're doing this. So now we're in business. It's a week before Vegas event. So what,
2022?
I think we're in 2022 now. Yeah. And Sheen was like, hey, I've got a ticket for you if you can make it out there. So we both rearrange our schedules, make it happen, and fly out to Vegas for event. So now, and that was, I don't know if you were in there.
I wasn't.
Okay.
I wish I would have been at that event.
Well, and it's the superhero theme,
Yeah,
right?
I wish I would have been at that because that was where Deion Sanders was, right?
No, not that one. But Sheena interviewed Layla Ali.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was Shaq. I think it was Shaq, Layla Ali. This is where Nelly opened up.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think it was like the superhero theme.
Story builders.
Yeah, story builders. Yeah, exactly. And so as a guest, Sheena has me planted in the first, like I'm in the front.
Yeah, that's
row.
awesome. That's
I'm
awesome.
in the front row, right? And we like have like these kind of comfy couches. I'm sitting like with her mom, Matt's mom, like, you know, just like getting the full experience. And I see my best friend up there, you know, Matt too, just like walk, you know, just running the stage, running things, because this I haven't seen up front in years, right?
Yeah.
Only from social media. And so it was just so, it was so awesome. This is also my birthday week. It always falls on my birthday week. So it's just like a great experience. And not only that, her nanny came with us. So my son is with me. I held him all through the Nelly opening and stuff like that. But then he goes off with the nanny and Jordan to go hang out. So I have my son in close proximity, but I'm here getting this full experience, right? So this is just selling me the dream, but not like as a side hustle anymore. Like, no, I want all of this.
You want all of it.
I want all of this. Like, I'm just like, man, this is crazy. And I'm just so proud of Matt and Sheen and what they have built, you know, just seeing all this team that they've built, just so proud of them. But just the fact that, you know, you see this woman of greatness that so many people look up to, right? But I'm her best friend. You know, why is that? Why does she choose me as her best friend?
She talks about you all the time.
Right.
Like all the time.
Well, Sheena, she doesn't have childhood friends. She really doesn't. There's not a lot of people that we went to school with that she keeps in contact. She's just not that kind of person, right? And you see her time is, you know, spent with this business, but these are business that have become family, right? Mm-hmm. But even outside of PHP, like I'm still her best friend, and I'm like, man, like, and I try not to get emotional when I think about this, but it's just like, I'm feeling broken. I'm feeling like forgotten. I'm feeling just kind of dumped to the side because of my divorce, right? It was so abrupt and just so hurtful. But in this moment, you know, I'm like, gosh, like this woman up here that's so great, such a role model, I'm somebody that means something, and they see something in me. Like the way that Matt and Sheen talk to me, they see greatness that I wasn't necessarily feeling at that time. And it just like starts like flooding in, like, oh my gosh, like, can I do this? Can I be that person on the stage? Like, they believe in me. And it starts to kind of ignite a Tiffany that had been kind of dormant throughout my marriage. Cause I've always been that competitive spirit, always been, you know, energetic and loud, but I'm just like, man, I haven't been that person in a very long time. And I'm like, man, so just feeling so energized. And then, you know, with my, you know, I know that the nanny is just the fact that my son was close to me and I'm able to just take in this experience. I'm like, wow, like, okay, so I see what a full-time nanny looks like, right? And then for the gala, you know, Sheen has me with all the, you know, the experience. So she has someone picks up my dress, someone's putting my hair together, someone's putting my makeup together. And I'm just like, what kind of life is happening right now, right? So I really get a good snapshot of like what she's been building and what's been going on. And I'm like, man, I was so comfortable with my nurse management position, making decent money. And I was content with doing that, like, for the rest of my life. Like, I was totally content, and now I'm not. So that's what happened. That's how I found myself in financial services. That's how everything came together. So it was like my ex-husband, when he got orders to move to San Antonio, then there was no reason for me to stay in Wichita Falls. And then really with having no support system whatsoever as a single parent, and now that I've got this ignition of you know, wanting to really pursue financial services, I packed my bags and moved to Dallas so that I could be in that proximity of the office.
That's a very powerful story. That's a lot of you got the opportunity to dream And a lot of people, I think, are losing sight of that dream because they are just content with, let's say, a 6-figure salary, right? Because we were sold that the 6-figure salary is what the golden prize is.
Right.
And for me personally, when I got that 6-figure salary, I was like, this isn't it.
Right.
And I don't know what it was in me, but I dreamed everything before it happened. The position I have now with this company as an engineer, I dreamed the nice desk, the nice cubicle, the nice coffee makers, the nice office, the nice facility, like the nice cafeteria.
Yeah.
Like I dreamed it down to everything.
Okay.
But I'm walking around, I'm like living the dream, and I'm like, something is missing. And I felt like I was crazy because I would talk to my managers and other like colleagues, and I'm like, everything's here, but we were missing something. And I felt like I sounded crazy, and they're like, that's just how it is. And I was like, that's not how it is. This is like, this is not how it is. I can't buy a nice house.
Yeah.
I can't retire mom and dad. I can't get I want a Corvette. I can't like go travel because you only get like a couple of days, a couple of weeks a year. And I'm like, they're controlling my time and they're controlling my income.
Right.
And when you go to this event and you have your son there with you, he's taken care of by a nanny 24/7. You're getting your hair and makeup did, and someone's picking out all your stuff, and you're just able to enjoy yourself. Why is it important for people to dream again? Because it's being taken away from us, I think, on purpose.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I mean, I don't think any of us as kids are laying, when they're asking us, like, what are you going to do when you grow up? We're shouting out all these things. Like, are we really thinking about, whatever job, right? Nurse, engineer, whatever. Like, are we thinking about, laying there doing that for what, 45, 50 years, day in, day out, to retire with close to nothing, close to where we're not even living the lifestyle. Like maybe we're living a decent lifestyle, as your working days as an engineer, me as a nurse, but retirement, we have no idea. And now we're living a less lifestyle after putting all those years in, right? Only to, and I see this all the time, right? So it's always on my brain, only to have some diagnosis, right? That comes up, whether that's cancer or a stroke or a heart attack, something, right? And then that's it. And then you pass away. So like that was our entire life, and I think we can talk ourselves into it. Like that's not bad, especially when we're those 6 figures, because automatically it's like, all right, this
made it.
Yeah, we
made
made
it.
That's how I felt. I really did. I was like, well, all right.
What's next?
So I'm good. Yeah. But it's, and then I get that nurse management, promotion, and to have that promotion as like, what, I think I was 37 years old at that time. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty young for that kind of position. But then it's like, okay, so here's your salary, and then you get your first annual merit raise or whatever, and it's like another extra
like 2%, 3%.
Maybe,
inflation's
right?
like 11.
Maybe, right? So you're just like, okay, so how many of these do I need to get, in order to send my son to private school? Because
I did the math at one point,
right.
and I'm like, how long is it going to take for me to get like 150, 200? And I'm
right.
like, bro, it's like freaking like 50 years. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm like, so by the time I can afford to put my son in private school, he's going to be 35.
Yeah.
The
math isn't mathing.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, so I'm 37 years old, at the time, right? And I'm like, all right, so I've got pretty much like another 30 years to do this. And I'm like, just trying to picture myself doing that. And like I said, even before seeing that vision, like I had talked myself into this being okay, right? Like I'm like, okay, so
You're convincing yourself to go back to the Matrix.
And in Wichita Falls, like, don't get me wrong, for the people who live out there, great. But I'm sitting here trying to talk myself into living in this smaller city.
Wow.
Like, okay, so my son can, I was going to like kid rodeos. I was like, maybe he'll do that. And like, like just trying to find out like, okay, where are the kind of like more nicer houses and the nicer schools, like around here, which, I'd say schools, but it's not
one school,
plural,
yeah.
right? Like, and so I'm trying to convince myself of this life, right? And then like I said, when I went to Vegas and then just got this vision, I'm like, man, like what like, what was I thinking? Like, why was I was literally making myself think smaller, and you just look around and a lot of my friends, I honestly, I've had to distance myself from some of my friends and family, and I'm sure you have too, right?
Absolutely.
That have this small thinking, and it's like they're trying to put you back into that box with them. And like, no, once you catch it, you're too big for that box. You're too big for it, right? And so I've had to let go because I'm like, man, we've just been conditioned to think this way. Even my grandma, and I love her, she just keeps asking me, she's like, so eventually you're not going to do nursing? Grandma, I know, I get it, but you're right. But you're so good at it. I understand. But those gifts that I have, I can take to another industry, and I am taking it to another industry, and I am going to impact lives in a different way. So I actually brought her to a big event last year, so that she could see like what I meant.
What was that like for her?
It was awesome. She did.
Okay.
Yeah, she totally did. She stood all the way until meeting after meeting after meeting.
Okay.
Like,
Shout out grandma.
Oh, she did it.
Okay.
My grandma did this. Okay. So it did. It just gave her a bigger vision of, and especially because my family's seen Sheen grow up too. So to see her on stage too, it gives them like another perspective. And the same thing with Matt, right? And so they see it. They might not see it like I see it,
right,
but they still are like, okay, I get it. There is a bigger purpose here, but I don't know if that answered your question.
No, absolutely. when you're on stage, they will see it more.
Yes.
What does this mean for your son?
Man, this opportunity for my son is, I feel like, and even for my, I think my younger brothers and my cousins as well. Like I feel like it just takes, the lid that's been on, my life. It opens it up, but then it also allows him to be able to dream differently. I've seen what it's done for, Sheen's oldest, Jojo, the opportunities that he's had. So now he's going to this amazing school, and what they can afford, as far as, tutoring, the athletic training that he's getting, that kind of stuff. So it's like my son doesn't have, there's no limitations for him. Whatever he needs, I'm going to be able to give it to him. I'm going to have that time. So I'm not clocked in. Oh gosh, I can't stand asking for PTO. I can't stand it. So I'm not going to have to ask for that PTO when he's got, something, when I've got to be there for him for something. I'm not going to have to do that. I can, rearrange, my business hours, kind of around the things that really matter for him. And then just being able to allow him to have that vision. So, and this is, not that my mom or dad or anything like that try to limit me, but sometimes I feel like it's hard for us to see past, maybe where our family has stopped when it comes to, their careers or finances or whatever. So being able to kind of just like open that up for him to where sky's the limit, is what I hope. That's what I hope to achieve to give him.
Last couple things I want to talk about is you've gotten really close with Matt and Sheena over the past couple of years. What's it like being around them? What is different? They're different. Mm-hmm. What makes them different? What are they doing different?
So, they're just constantly moving. So from the time that they wake up to the time that they go to sleep, those late hours, they're just always doing something. I think they're just always intentional about, obviously, just because they're making, $2 million a year, it's not like they're rolling into the office at 10 a.m., right? Sheen's there. She's there as soon as she drops off Jojo. She's there at the office. And then Matt, he's doing something, whether it's for his podcast, meeting up with, like a new prospect or whatever that is, or going out into the field, both of them with other, agents like ourselves to teach them. They're up, very early, just like the rest of us, just like us who are clocking in and clocking out, right? And then the same thing all throughout the day, they're working, bringing other people with them, but they're also intentional about who they're spending their time with, right? Always going to be high performers, always going to be positive people, always going to be people who are going to help, propel them or mentor them, like staying close to PBD, making sure, they have a high expectation, right? They're top in the company. So a lot of people, expect high things. So they've got to keep that, that going, right? So, and I don't necessarily see them under pressure, but it's just like they just keep being that high achiever, setting the standard. They're the first two for everything. So they're always looking for that next first two, right? They were the first to 500, 750, 1 million. Then they were first two to 2 million. So always finding that next first two. That's kind of like big in our culture, right?
Absolutely.
But then also within our base shop, that it's big to be that first two person. And then like for instance, Sheena, she likes her K-dramas, right? But that's like total relaxation mode, right? Total relaxation mode, reset mode, if you will. But other than that, she's watching like those Netflix, like those documentaries that she shows like at Full Timers and things like that. So like she's filling herself with that content. What are her takeaways? I watch TV and movies differently because I'm always like, okay, what are the takeaways? What are the takeaways, right? Rather than just like, I'm just gonna eat some popcorn. Like I'm always looking for like, what can we apply to our lives? So they're always kind of thinking like that. Matt is constant content. He's always, valuetainment or just someone's podcast or someone's, the news. Like he's always just, and he puts it on like a speed,
the speed, I know what you're talking about, like two times speed.
Yeah, so he can get more content, in, or always reading books or something. They're just always doing something that is worth doing. It's not just idle, dead time.
Well, what's their morning routines like? Are they up early, up late? Like, are they sleeping?
So, Sheena's up early. Like I said, she takes Jojo to school, and then she's headed to the office or her first field appointment, or sometimes they're running like a national call or something like that. And then she's just appointments back to back to back to back, or processing issues with whoever it is within their agency. And then Sheena, she usually has, depending on, if there's a closeout or something like that, she usually kind of has like a cutoff time. She's like, okay, I'm going to sleep, because she knows she needs like her solid, like maybe 6 to 8 hours. That's how she is. And then there's Matt, who he's up until, the other night, I think I woke up to get some water at like 2:30 a.m. and there he was, just looking at something. So he goes until he falls asleep, really. I don't know how he does it.
What is something that you have taken away and implemented in your life?
Okay, from them?
From being around them and seeing, this is what high performers do. I'm going to do this right now because it works. Like something that you could share that other people could do.
I mean, the biggest thing, and I don't know, this is not necessarily an action. It's more of a mindset of no excuses.
Gotcha.
It's no excuses. Like, don't get me wrong, they make money, but they still have a lot of the same, things that we have going on.
They still have just human problems.
They're human beings. They've got children. They still have, Jordan, who's just turned 5 years old. They've got Jojo, who's, in middle school. They've got, they're in activities, keeping up on their grades. Then they've got this massive agency. So you only know, massive agency. There's so many different things that are happening. And it's the same thing. They're homeowners for the first time. So they've got, those things that they're trying to do. There's all kinds of things, but there's just no excuses. There's no excuses. You can see, right? They are always there. They are always present. Now, Matt's on a book tour right now, but he's just in somebody else's office.
He's always at the office.
Correct.
Like not just him, both of them.
Right.
And it's insane to like I remember I missed, and I remember he was there, and he like mentioned my name, and I'm like, the one time I missed, of course he said something about me, and I'm like, man, he's always there.
They are always there. Like what I've seen. So there was this our last mid-month closeout, right? We were up till 2 a.m. right?
Oh yeah, I think you're talking about for the 15th in February.
Yeah,
that was an amazing closeout.
Yeah, it was. Oh gosh, you could feel the energy, right? But what people didn't realize is Sheena drove to Houston at 6 a.m.
Really?
Yeah, because she took Jojo to his basketball tournament.
Oh, wow.
Those are the things that people don't see. She's not going to go brag about it. She's not that type of person. She's not going to go tell you, oh, well, I was up at 6 and blah, blah, blah. She was up at 6 a.m. to go take her son to a basketball tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. So
she had, so I just kind of want to like regurgitate that. We had a massive closeout in our company. Her and Matt were up till 2, maybe 3 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
closing out, making sure that everyone on their team is hitting their numbers, hitting their promotions, making sure that their team is taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
so that their team can be in a better position financially for their future. The next morning, she's up at 6 a.m. to take her son to Houston for basketball.
She's a mother.
That's insane.
Right? She's a mother. And not only that, so she was up. And then shortly after that, Matt's already got his suitcase packed because he's headed to Maryland for book tour.
Wow.
Yeah. So getting there, earlier, it gives him time to spend with their office. Right. And so again, just feeding into other people, even though they were just up, like other people are like, oh gosh, I was just up to 2, so I don't have to be at the office until noon, or, but that's not how they roll. And that's why they are where they're at. So when I see that, I can't make excuses. So I'm going to work. I'm tired, but geez, I have to put in the work. I've got to put in more work. I almost feel like if I'm going to get to where they're at, you know what I'm saying? So it's just a no excuses. So it's been, I would say, I don't think I was a huge excuse kind of person before all of this, but it's definitely like when I hear it, I'm like, you guys, look, if you want a better life, you got to get with it. You can't continue to have the work ethic that you are given to your boss, to yourself. If you want a great life, extraordinary goals, you've got to put in extraordinary work. And that's what I get from them.
I love it. Do you know your team name?
I'm terrible at these kind of things, but Team Takeover is where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the mission and vision for what you want to do moving forward for you and your family and the business?
So, I mean, honestly, and I think I shared this in the office. I think
you did it recently. You did. Yeah.
And I think you and I kind of had, some similar vision, but I really want to prove it to myself. I really, really do. I want to prove that I am meant for greatness.
Yeah.
I've with this vision, I feel like something has been ignited in me. I feel like there's a lot of people who believe in me. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say that I don't believe in me, because I am confident, but I want to prove it to myself. Like, is this for real? Is this within you, Tiff? Like, can you push yourself to the limit? Can you do this? Do you you say you have endurance. People think you have endurance, but do you truly have what it takes, to be great in not just this, in financial service, not just in PHP, but in this life, are you truly done with this mediocre Tiff? Are you? Because you've got to be tested. Can you do this? Can you, make a difference in other people's lives? I feel like, that's what I want to do. I want to bring up people. I want to do what Matt and Sheen has done for me and so many others. I want to do that so bad, not just for strangers, but for my family. I want to be that kind of person, that example, for my brothers, for my cousins, for my family, that we can dream. Just like you mentioned, I want my friends, other nurses, to see that there is something different, that you can dream again. So I want to be that example, just like how Matt and Sheen are to me. I want the actions that I take to be inspiring to other people. So definitely, I want the millions. I want to bring other people with me so that they can become millionaires as well. I want to prove to my son that all of this time that I spend away from him is worth it, and there's a reason. It's not just me, just kind of, not spending enough time with him, but there's a reason. It's so that I can open, doors for him. And I want to prove it to my dad. My dad has always been a cheerleader of mine. He's actually in business, working out of the Sacramento office. But I want to prove to him, I feel like he's always believed in me, and I want to prove to him that, yeah, your daughter, is great. And it is meant for greatness. And so I want to prove it to him. I hope that's what you're looking for.
You'll definitely achieve it. I'm excited for you and your growth, and especially with your family as well, and for you and your son, and what you're also going to do, being with Matt and Sheen, and then you're going to be obviously alongside them at one point. Mm-hmm. I was gonna also say that the other day you mentioned how you want to. We were both kind of given the opportunity to speak at the office, and I want to taste victory. I like what I love about you and I is that we did everything right. We went to school, we got the good job, we followed all the rules, we got a 401k, we did everything right.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work, and that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Like that just really, really pisses me off because I don't like the situation that we're into where we can't give your son exactly what he wants. I can't retire my mom and dad. I can't buy a house.
Yeah.
I can't I'm dating a girl now and I want to make sure that she can have everything she wants. I
Right.
don't want her to have a job working for another man.
Right.
So I love that this is happening because it's just like I want to taste the victory.
Yeah.
I want to break out of the matrix. I want to taste the champagne, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but it's like it's not even just about me. I want to put other people first.
Yeah.
So the more we put other people first, the closer we're gonna get to that.
Absolutely.
So, any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think I talked a lot more than I thought I was going to. You pulled a lot more. Good job.
I appreciate
out
that.
of me. But yeah, just like you mentioned, it's always about other people. I think that's the beauty of how, we're kind of set up within, PHP, right? And I feel like if you have that right heart, and I know, what we know of you is that you have the right heart. It's in the right place. We want to pull up others, and in order to taste the success like we want to, it's going to require that. But I think it's just like with nursing, right? You can be a nurse just for the money. You can do it, but do you get that purpose? Can you last? I don't think you can last without having that real purpose and really having that real heart for other people. You mentioned retiring your parents. Gosh, that would be a dream to do. But not only that, I want to sew into like my brothers. A lot of them, or a couple of them, have some businesses, and a couple of cousins have businesses. I really want to just be able to just sew large chunks of money into their businesses so that they can be, successful and all of those kind of things. So many different things. I feel like I'm still working on my vision because it's been so small for so long that Matt had me do like this exercise where he sent me to go to a car dealership and drive around in like these Bentleys and stuff like that. And that really helped because I really truly think I've been in that box for so daggone long that it is hard for me to dream, even still sometimes. And I've got to keep kind of growing and kind of looking outside. Okay, what are the possibilities for me? And it's still evolving. Yeah.
I love it. Money Smart Nurse is going to take over.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.